Hello everyone, in today's video we'll see how to explain the most complex concept in more simpler way. Why? Because if you're going to use so much of complex sentences and jargon words, it's going to be very difficult for the beginner learners. So in order to attract the audience and in order to portray your own concept much more easier way for the audience, it is always best to go with the simpler way. So this particular video is going to be really helpful for all the people who are going to watch it, how the simple concept could be explained in more briefer way, and how the complex concept could also be done in the same way. Why it is important for us to explain everything clearly. First, we'll take four different scenarios. The first one is professional success. If you take examples of all the professional successing person, for example, Elon Musk or anybody who is well reputed people, they always go with the hiring process with a 92 percentage basically on how well they are presenting the most complex structured sentences or complex concept in much more simpler way. In a way they can easily evaluate the communication skill of the person. Second scenario, when you go for an interview, why do you think that GDs or debate is being conducted there? In order to evaluate your communication skill, how far you're very good in that, and how far you understand the concept in a given minimal of time, and how far we are executing it. That's the reason that the interviewers mostly just held up with the GDs and then debates. On the third one, take example that you are in a conference and you have to explain a concept much more clear. We always give it to the person who can easily attract the audience, who can make the audience to understand what is the concept that we are trying to explain. That's the reason whenever a presentation is happening, you can see that the presenter, the manager usually give it to the TL who is best in articulating it and presenting it. So for the clarity, it is very much important. The fourth scenario, when you're teaching a concept to a student, make sure that it has a depth value. Do not go with the surface level of learning, because with the level of learning, nobody is going to have an understanding, a better understanding, or they will not have a lot of involvement when they're learning it. So it's always better to go with deeper level of learning than the surface level of learning. In order to have the deeper level of learning, we should always go with simple concept explanation. We should understand the base of every individual, and then we have to explain it to them. The curse of the knowledge, of course, yeah. Why? Because English is being so simple language, and it also becomes a little curse. A word could be used in multiple places with different meanings and scenarios. It's very hard for anybody to understand when it comes to English, despite it is a very simple language. The people who are eminent or very proficient in speaking in English, they have a few things that they follow whenever they're communicating. Whenever you speak with a average level of people who speaks in English, always keeps in these 4 points. First one, try avoid using the jargon words, a word which is so much complex and too much technical, it is very difficult for the audience to understand. So try to understand what is the level of the audience and then address it to them. Try to avoid the technical terms most properly. If you find that to a very common layman, it is very hard if you're going to use a very technical term. So consider that you're explaining it to a layman, then your problem is solved. Second one, do not overload a person with too much of information. According to the science, it says that a person mind, it can hold information only for about 20 minutes. If you're going to exceed more than that, then it's very difficult for us to hold the thought process that they're actually wondering it outside. So try to have a very minimalistic level of explaining it instead of dropping in too much of information. And third one, try to skip the very basic or the fundamental. When you are explaining to the intermediate level of people, it's not necessary that you have to go even the basic in a very in-depth way. It's not necessary. So you can directly jump on to what is the title that actually they want to learn on. Then third one, you're assuming the audience background. So whenever you look at a people, make sure that they are you know they're having a greater level of understanding whenever we present it to them, only by understanding their level. So keep that in mind. There are 5 steps I would like to teach you people when it comes to clarity in explaining it to the students. The first one, identify the core concept. You can have one main idea, and that one main idea, you create a framework for them, or you create one mind map. With the help of the mind map, it's easy for them to understand the whole concept. A good example is an ecosystem. The ecosystem is always explained with the help of the diagram. The diagram, we can say that it has been taken from the Bloom's taxonomy. So first you make them understand what's the concept, and then see, you provide them with too much of example, and then you evaluate how far they have understood. The same way the ecosystem is also being explained. It goes as a flow chart. So whenever you identify a complex subject that has been given to the students, make sure that you split it into a small framework where they can understand. Second one, if too much of information is given in one place, try to break down into different parts and then make them to understand. If you're going to explain parts of speech, there are 8 different levels of parts of speech there. So instead of teaching them all the 8 at the same stretch, it is better that you can split it for a day. You can take two and you give more examples, make them to do activity, and then you go for the next two. So if too much of information is being dropped out, it's always better to break it down, segregate, make it into a fragment, and then submit. Third one, use a lot of analogies. Like it's very hard for the people when we were young to memorize all the 7 colors in the rainbow. So instead, it has been given as Vibgya to us. Still, date we people can remember, right? Likewise, try to use a lot of analogies. Next, try to make those people to use their imagination. If you can make an audience to visualize, the visualization effects last for a longer period of time. So the visualization idea and the concept will not fade away rather than sitting and taking notes. The last one is verify it with the context. Ask them the feedback. So if you use all this 5 framework, definitely people can understand the most complex concept in much more easier way. Following with this, there are 5 more steps that I have actually brought it in. This five level is explained in more detail in the next video. Thank you for watching. To master your communication, please do follow the 3 step. One, have a clear thinking. Two, speak clearly so which you have an impactful speech, and this would really help you in making the audience explain the most complex concept in more simpler way. The follow up of this particular video, I'll be posting it followed by, it is a sequel video. This is sequel 1, the sequel video soon you will watch. Thank you for watching.